At minus 40 degrees, exposed skin can freeze in under 10 minutes. Your lungs can develop frostbite from breathing. Car engines will not start. Plastic shatters like glass. And yet, every single winter, hundreds of homeless people in Anchorage and Fairbanks survive these conditions outdoors. They do not have heated shelters. They do not have technical gear. They do not have most of what survival experts say you absolutely need. So how are they still alive when temperatures reach a level that can kill trained Arctic researchers in hours? Here is the thing nobody outside Alaska understands about minus 40. That is not just a colder version of cold. That is the temperature where Fahrenheit and Celsius converge into the same number. A wet glove at 20 degrees is uncomfortable. A wet glove at minus 40 means you might lose those fingers within the hour. Everything has to be done right the first time because there is no margin for error. So what do Alaska's unsheltered homeless do? They burrow. Most people picture homeless folks huddled in doorways, but in Fairbanks and Anchorage, the experienced ones disappear into the snow itself. They build what Inuit hunters have used for thousands of years, a snow cave, and the science behind it is genuinely incredible. Compacted snow has an insulation value close to fiberglass batting. When you carve out a small chamber inside a snowdrift, the inside temperature can hold around 32 degrees Fahrenheit, no matter what is happening outside. Think about that. It could be minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit with screaming winds, and inside that snow cave, you are sitting at the freezing point of water. That's an 80-degree difference. Free heating built from the thing trying to kill you. The trick is knowing how to build one without dying in the process. Veteran cold weather survivors dig the entrance lower than the sleeping chamber. Why? Because cold air sinks. Any frigid air that creeps in pools at the bottom near the entrance, while the warm air your body produces rises and stays trapped in the upper sleeping area. It is basically a thermal trap, working in reverse. One man I read about in an Anchorage outreach report had been doing this for 6 winters straight. He would carve a fresh shelter into a roadside snowbank every few days, mark it discreetly so plows would not bury him, and survive nights that killed tourists. 6 winters, the same conditions that made national news for killing people he had been quietly living through. But snow caves only work where there is deep snow and time to build. What happens when temperatures crash before you have prepared anything? That is where the real survivors separate from everyone else. Now here is the thing about Alaska cold. You cannot just throw on more clothes and expect to survive. Cotton kills people up there. They have a saying, cotton is poison at minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and it is not an exaggeration. Cotton absorbs moisture and holds it against your skin, sweat, snow, rain, anything wet. Once cotton gets damp in extreme cold, it loses almost all of its insulating ability. You are essentially wearing a wet refrigerator against your body. People have died wearing 5 layers of cotton thinking they were prepared. So, experienced street survivors in Anchorage do something that sounds wasteful. They throw cotton clothes away, even donated ones, even nice ones. If a charity hands them a cotton hoodie or cotton sweatpants, they will trade them away or leave them behind. They are hunting for one specific material, wool. Wool insulates even when wet, even when soaking wet. That is the magic property that has kept Arctic peoples alive for thousands of years. A wet wool sweater at minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit is still keeping you warm. A wet cotton sweater is actively killing you. Same temperature, opposite outcomes. The experienced ones learn the secondhand store circuit by heart. They know which Salvation Army gets military surplus wool. They know which thrift stores donate to charity bins. They know that real wool feels slightly scratchy and burns to ash when you flame test it, while polyester melts into hard beads. These details matter when picking the wrong sweater could kill you. And then there is the layering system. 3 layers, never 2, never 4. A base layer of wool or merino against the skin to manage moisture, a middle layer of fleece or thicker wool for insulation, an outer layer of a windproof shell to block the brutal Alaskan wind. Each layer does one job, Combine them, and you have built a personal climate control system for free. Boots are where most homeless folks get destroyed, though. A pair of cheap sneakers at minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit will freeze your feet to the insoles within an hour. So they hunt specifically for bunny boots, the white rubber military boots from the Korean War era. These things look ridiculous, but they work down to minus 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Surplus stores in Anchorage sometimes have them for $40. Veterans donate them. Charities collect them. They are like gold currency in homeless communities up there. Boots are that valuable, but clothing only does so much when the air itself is trying to freeze your lungs, and that is where the breathing trick comes in. Here is something they do not tell you in any survival textbook. At minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, breathing through your mouth can damage your lungs. The cold air hits your airways and triggers spasms, frostbite, and cold-induced asthma. You can literally cough up frozen tissue. So what do experienced Alaska street folks do? They breathe through cloth. Always. Every single inhale gets filtered through a scarf, a bandana, or what they call a snot rag. It sounds gross, but there is brutal logic behind it. The fabric warms the incoming air before it hits your lungs, and it traps moisture from your breath so you are not constantly dehydrating. Cloth makes a life or death difference. Some take it further. They tuck the fabric inside the front of their jacket so it warms against their body heat before being pulled up over the nose and mouth. Preheated air. That tiny temperature boost can mean the difference between healthy lungs in March and a hospital visit in February. And then there is the nose breathing rule. You breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth into the scarf. Why? Your nasal passages are designed to warm and humidify air before it reaches your lungs. They are like a free biological heater that most people never use properly. Mouth breathers at minus 40 are gambling with their lives. Now here is where things get clever. Experienced cold survivors carry small pieces of cardboard or thick paper specifically for breath warming. When the air gets so cold that even cloth is not enough, they hold cardboard a few inches from their face and breathe through that. The cardboard creates a buffer zone where exhaled breath warms the next inhale slightly. It is basically a primitive heat exchanger. But here is the part most outsiders do not realize. Even with perfect breathing technique, your body loses heat through your head faster than anywhere else. Roughly 10% of total body heat escapes through an uncovered head in extreme cold. So homeless survivors in Alaska are basically religious about hats. Multiple hats, sometimes 3 at a time. A thin wool beanie against the scalp, a thicker wool hat over that, and a fur-lined hood pulled tight on top. Face matters more than people think. Frostbite hits nose tips, cheeks, and earlobes first, so they cover everything except the eyes. Some use ski goggles donated from charity drives. Others use sunglasses with the lenses popped out and replaced with clear plastic. Whatever it takes to keep wind off the skin while still being able to see. Protecting yourself from the cold is one battle, but staying warm requires fuel, and what they eat to generate heat is nothing like what you would expect. So let us talk about calories. At minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, your body burns roughly 6,000 calories a day just trying to maintain core temperature. That is 3 times what an average person needs. So homeless folks in Anchorage develop an eating strategy that would horrify a nutritionist. They want fat. Pure abundance, heavy of fat. The kind of food a doctor would tell you to avoid. Lard, butter, bacon grease, peanut butter eaten by the spoonful. Why? Because fat has 9 calories per gram, while protein and carbohydrates only have 4. When you are freezing and food is scarce, you need the densest fuel possible. Soup kitchens in Anchorage actually understand this. The best ones serve high-fat stews, butter-heavy mashed potatoes, and bread soaked in grease. They know their clients are not trying to lose weight. They are trying to not freeze to death. But here is the genius part. Veteran street survivors do not just eat fat. They time it precisely. About an hour before they bed down for the night, they eat the fattiest thing they can find. Why? Because digestion of fat generates body heat for 4 to 6 hours afterward. It is called specific dynamic action, and it basically turns your stomach into a slow-release furnace right when you need it most. Some carry small containers of solid coconut oil. A spoonful before sleep is like swallowing a thermal grenade. Your body breaks it down slowly, releasing warmth into the early morning hours when temperatures hit their absolute lowest. That sounds extreme, but at minus 45 degrees Fahrenheit in February, extreme is normal. Sugar gets used differently. Quick burning fuel for emergency situations. A candy bar can generate 20 minutes of warm energy when you are shivering uncontrollably and need immediate heat to make it to shelter. But sugar alone will not last the night. So the strategy is fat for sleeping, sugar for moving, and then there is tea. Hot beverages do something most people do not realize. They warm your core from the inside. A thermos of hot tea or coffee can be the difference between making it through a night and not making it. Public libraries become survival outposts because they have free hot water from drinking fountains and microwaves. Some shelters give out instant coffee packets specifically because they know clients will use them as portable heat sources. What they avoid is alcohol. Despite the stereotype, experienced cold weather homeless people do not drink in extreme cold. They know what casual observers do not. Alcohol dilates blood vessels, making you feel warm while accelerating heat loss. People who drink in extreme cold die. The smart ones save alcohol for warmer days or skip it entirely during cold snaps. But food and clothing have limits when you are truly outside. And that is where Alaska homeless folks have developed something that sounds impossible but actually works. Here's what nobody outside Alaska understands. Some of the most experienced homeless folks in Anchorage and Fairbanks don't just survive the cold. They've figured out how to actively generate heat without electricity, without fuel, and without a real shelter. Body heat clustering. When temperatures drop below minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit, people gather. Sometimes strangers, sometimes friends, sometimes whoever shows up. They form what veterans call a heat pile. 3 or 4 people in a tight cluster can collectively generate enough warmth to maintain a survivable temperature inside a tarp, an abandoned dumpster, or even just behind a windbreak. 2 bodies produce 160 watts of heat. 4 bodies push that to 320 watts. That's basically a space heater made of humans. The arrangement matters, though. Veterans sleep in a spoon formation with the most vulnerable person in the middle. The elderly, the sick, anyone with frostbite already starting. They get the warmest spot, surrounded by stronger bodies. It's a survival ethic that emerged organically among Anchorage's homeless community. No one taught them. They figured it out because the alternative was watching their friends die. Dogs play a huge role in this too. Many DC unsheltered Alaskans keep dogs not as pets, but as survival partners. A medium-sized dog produces about 100 watts of body heat. They radiate warmth all night. They alert their owner if breathing becomes irregular. They wake their human at dawn so the person does not sleep too long and slip into hypothermia. Some dogs have literally dragged their owners out of dangerous situations. Then there is the windbreak engineering. Wind at minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit is what actually kills people. Still air at minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit is survivable for hours. Add a 20 miles per hour wind, and the effective temperature drops to minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So experienced street folks become obsessive about windbreaks. They scout building corners that create dead air pockets. They identify which dumpsters block the prevailing north wind. They know which downtown alleys funnel wind and which ones trap stillness. Some build emergency windbreaks from cardboard, broken pallets, and snow blocks. A 3-sided enclosure with the opening facing south can raise the effective temperature inside by 20 degrees Fahrenheit or more. That's a swing that turns deadly conditions into merely brutal ones. It might not sound like much, but at minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, every single degree matters. Steam vents become sacred geography. Anchorage has underground utility tunnels that release heated air through grates throughout the downtown area. Veterans know every single one. They time their sleep cycles around them, rotating between vents to avoid attention while maximizing exposure to free heat. Some of these vents stay above freezing all winter, creating tiny tropical zones in a frozen city. But here is the part that gets ignored. None of this works alone. The whole system depends on community knowledge passed down between street veterans and newcomers. That information network is more sophisticated than most people would ever guess. So how does someone new to the streets of Anchorage learn all this before their first deadly winter? The answer is what social workers call shadow mentorship. Veteran homeless folks deliberately take new arrivals under their wing during October and November. They have maybe 4 to 6 weeks to teach everything before the real cold arrives. These lessons happen in libraries, in soup kitchen lines, in the warming bus that runs between shelters. Old-timers point out which abandoned buildings have unlocked basements, which churches leave their vestibules accessible after midnight, and which 24-hour businesses tolerate someone nursing a coffee for 4 hours. The information is not written down anywhere. It exists only in the heads of people who have survived multiple Alaska winters outside. And here it gets remarkable. There is an unspoken rule that knowledge gets shared freely. In other survival communities, information becomes currency. People hoard it, trade it, use it for leverage. But in Anchorage's homeless community, withholding cold weather survival information from a newcomer is considered the lowest possible behavior. People who do it get ostracized. Why? Because somewhere along the way, this community figured out that information hoarding kills people. A newcomer who does not know that cotton can be deadly will freeze. A newcomer who does not know about the steam vents will choose a dangerous sleeping spot. So everyone teaches everyone. Even rivals teach each other. Even people who do not like each other share survival information, because letting someone die through ignorance is unthinkable. The buddy check system runs every morning during cold snaps. Veterans walk specific routes, checking sleeping spots, snow caves, and known shelter locations. If a body is not moving, they intervene. They shake them awake. They get them to a hospital. They drag them to a fire station if they are unresponsive. Outreach workers have documented dozens of cases where homeless veterans saved other homeless people that the official system did not even know existed. Then there is the Warming Center Intelligence Network. Anchorage has multiple warming centers, but they have different rules, different hours, and different attitudes. One might allow dogs but kick people out at 7 a.m. Another might be open 24 hours but have aggressive security. The whole network gets mapped mentally by veterans who know exactly which center to send a newcomer based on their specific situation. The cell phone changed everything in the last decade. Lifeline phones, the free government phones for low-income people, have created something nobody expected. They created underground weather alert networks. When a deadly cold snap is incoming, texts ripple through the homeless community within minutes. Group chats coordinate emergency shelter runs. Information that used to take days to spread now spreads in minutes. Outreach workers have started using these networks too. They send mass texts when emergency warming buses are deploying. They alert people when church basements are opening for the night. The combination of veteran knowledge and modern communication has saved more lives in the last 5 years than any official program. But even with all this technology, knowledge, and community, the body has hard limits. And recognizing when someone has crossed those limits is the most critical skill of all. Here's the part that veterans take most seriously: recognizing the moment when survival turns into dying. Hypothermia kills people who don't realize they're dying. That's what makes it so dangerous. The early symptoms feel almost comfortable. The first warning sign is paradoxical undressing. When core body temperature drops to a critical point, the brain misfires and the person feels suddenly hot. They start removing clothes. Searches have found frozen bodies in their underwear standing in 5-foot snowdrifts. They felt feverish during their final minutes. So veterans watch for clothing changes. Anyone stripping in extreme cold needs immediate intervention. Confusion comes next. Slurred speech, disorientation, an inability to make simple decisions. Someone who can't remember which way the shelter is, who can't follow a simple instruction, who's wandering instead of walking with purpose. These are signs the brain isn't getting enough warm blood. The window to help is measured in minutes, not hours. But the most ominous sign is when shivering stops. People think shivering is bad, but shivering is actually your body fighting back. It generates significant heat through muscle contraction. When someone stops shivering, it doesn't mean they're warming up. It means their body has given up trying. Without immediate intervention, they will die within an hour. So veterans drill these signs into newcomers like a religion. Watch your buddy, watch yourself, watch strangers walking past. If someone looks confused, stops shivering, or starts taking off clothes, you act immediately. You don't ask questions. You don't worry about offending them. You get them inside. You get warm liquids into them. You call for help. And here's something Alaska's homeless community understands that the general public doesn't. Frostbite and hypothermia don't always happen during the coldest weather. They happen during transitions. A day at 20 degrees Fahrenheit after a week that was 40 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit feels warm. People underdress. They sweat. The sweat freezes when the temperature drops again at night. More homeless people die during these warm than cold cycles than during sustained extreme cold. The mental aspect gets ignored too. Surviving Alaska winters outside isn't just physical endurance, it's psychological warfare. The constant cold wears people down, depression spikes, substance abuse becomes a coping mechanism that kills people. So veterans build psychological survival routines. They tell themselves stories, they sing, they count things. They keep their mind active to prevent the slow drift into hopelessness that precedes giving up. Some veterans describe what they call winter mind. Winter mind is a specific mental state where you accept the cold instead of fighting it. You stop resenting every gust of wind. You stop dreaming about warm places. You exist fully in the moment of being cold, and somehow that acceptance makes the suffering bearable. It sounds almost spiritual, but it is pure survival psychology. So what have we learned? Surviving minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit in Alaska without shelter is not about one heroic skill. It is snow caves and wool layers and breath warming. It is high-fat meals and body heat clustering and shared knowledge. It is recognizing the signs of dying and intervening before someone slips away. The people pulling this off are not trained survivalists. They are regular humans who had no choice but to figure it out or die. They have developed a body of knowledge that rivals what professional Arctic researchers know, learned through trial and tragedy on the streets of Anchorage and Fairbanks. And honestly, the fact that any of this works at all is one of the more remarkable examples of human resilience you will ever encounter. These are not homeless tricks. They are Arctic survival techniques developed by people the rest of society wrote off. And frankly, that is something worth respecting.